Okay, I've got a real stumper for you.
Yeah, okay.
Who is the most underrated country musician of all time? Please discuss amongst yourselves.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Of course, there's not one correct answer to this question, but my money here is on Vince Gill. Because ever since the 1970s, Vince has quietly put out some of the best country music there is. With a virtuistic command of banjo, guitar, bass, mandolin, fiddle, and heaven knows what else. He's been a part of more classic tracks than I can name. But that's not all. Vince has continued his streak of excellence well into the 2000s. But Vince is also a real humble guy. He's not flashy or fame-seeking in any way. But his technical excellence and gentle soul put him head and shoulder above most. I just can't get my fill of the Gill. But in more recent years, I've wondered what has happened to Vince. Besides some collaborations here and there, the guy hasn't put out an album since 2019's excellent Okie. Is he still in good health? Is he still married to renowned Christian singer Amy Grant? Has Vince Gill actually left the world of music behind? Has he become, as the song goes, a victim of life's circumstance?
And I'm a victim of life's circumstances.
Well, in today's video, we're answering all those questions and more. Along the way, we'll learn about both the past and present of Vince's wildly dramatic marriage. But before we dive in, do Vince a favor and, of course, us a favor, and give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Are you ready?
Sir, yes, sir.
Well, let's go find out.
What happened?
Amy Grant and Vince Gill. Vince Gill has performed some of the best love songs in the history of country music. From Go Rest High on That Mountain, a heartbreaking tale of saying goodbye, to the soaring love song Whenever You Come Around, which turned out to be Gill's biggest hit in the pop charts.
Whenever you come around.
And the muse behind the lyrics is his wife, Amy Grant, who he had recently met at the time. His songs sit in that perfect sweet spot of melancholy, sweetness, and sadness that characterizes every truly great country love song. And there's a good reason for that. Vince's music has been heavily inspired by his real-life passions. First, there's his tragic first marriage to country singer Janice Oliver. That lasted 17 years. Then there's his second marriage to famed Christian singer Amy Grant. But what is the deal with their marriage today? Let's peel back the curtain and reveal the truth behind this legendary romance. How did Amy and Vince meet? To understand the truth of Vince's marriage, we have to go back a little bit. Vince, of course, is known for his pleasant, breezy music with a core of brilliance, of course.
Letter to my mama from the bottom of my heart.
And Amy is known as the queen of Christian pop.
That's what love is for, to help us through.
She's famous both for her wholesome, appealing music and her personality to match. So I was shocked to hear that the story of how they met appears to belie their pure image, because the two didn't meet at a Bible camp as young, innocent believers in training. Vince was actually still married to his first wife when the two came into contact with each other. And that's not all. Amy, too, was married at that time.
Hold up. Wait a minute.
And not just to some Joe Schmo.
What is going on?
She was married to another Christian musician with an image of purity. So what happened to get these two together? Well, the year was 1993, and things were looking rough for Vince. You see, having a wife who was also involved in the country music scene could be rewarding in many ways. When Janice's career began to take off, Vince supported her, working as a session guitarist while she built her name. He'd even mix her band. But the greatest killer of marriages is not booze, drugs, or even other women. Plain and simple, it is time. And Vince and Janice began to grow apart because their lives were totally intertwined. They began to suffocate each other, emotionally speaking. But then something happened that would change the course of Vince's life forever. Vince had a pretty neat opportunity in 1993, his own televised Christmas special. But with the special came a tough question: who would he perform with? And it wasn't his wife. Vince, a lifelong Christian, didn't just want a pretty face and a nice voice from the starlit mill down in Nashville. He wanted to find someone who was on the same spiritual level as him, music-wise. So he decided on a Christian singer who had recently skyrocketed in popularity. That singer, of course, was Amy Grant, and just watch them perform together. Vince is downright bashful. You can tell he is magnetically attracted to this woman. But then there's a tragic note to the performance too. The song they sing here was written by Amy and her husband as a testament to their love, while that love had also faded. Okay, so now they're friends, and within a few years, both parties were divorced. So Vince and Amy tried it again. They remarried to each other this time. And Amy adamantly maintains that nothing below board happened between the two. In an interview years later, she claimed that her marriage had been on the rocks for 15 years already. Vince absolutely did not break up her marriage. He simply revealed its dysfunction. And for years since, Vince and Amy have seemed to be one of the happiest couples in Nashville. But of course, appearances can be deceiving. So let's find out how they are today. Are Vince and Amy still married? Well, we are happy to report yes. Vince and Amy are still married, and very happily by every account. The two still appear to be a perfect match, spiritually, personally, and musically too. The pair took some time to figure out the messy work of raising a blended family, but they figured it out. They've also added another kid to the mix, Corinna Grant Gill. And besides being productive in the family, the two have also put out tons of music together. And their first performance must still be rich with sentimental value because they've made a habit of recapturing it every year at Christmas time, always completing a Nashville, Tennessee Christmas tour. 12 Days of Christmas at the Ryman. It seems like the couple's marriage is truly as pure and happy as it seems to be. Did Vince Gill really quit music? Now, my dad got me into Vince Gill when I was quite young. His music was the soundtrack to my childhood. And I love his old records so much that sometimes I forget that Vince is still around. And we all have to make that habit of checking out what Vince is up to today. Usually, I'm rewarded with a new album that went under my radar, and for the next few weeks are blessed by new Vince Gill music. But this last time I checked, I noticed something disheartening. Vince hasn't put out a proper album in over 3 years. The only thing he's released are a few one-off collaborations and a soundtrack song from a TV film. So I took notice and I feared the worst. Did Vince quit music? Has something happened to the legendary singer? The answer, as it turns out, is complicated.
Bam. Oh, bop.
And it actually has something to do with the Eagles. Now, I'm sure many of you were heartbroken when Glenn Frey died in 2016. One of America's most legendary musical groups had finally come to an end, or at least with Glenn fronting them. The rest of the band was heartbroken by the loss, an incredible bandmate and a lifelong friend. And many people assumed that they were done, but then something remarkable happened. The musicians found that the best way to celebrate their friend's life was through, you guessed it, more music. So they decided to keep performing, but with a little help from their friends. Gill had been great friends with Glenn, and he considered the opportunity a bittersweet way to continue his buddy's legacy. And for the last 5 years, he has been doing exactly that, touring around the world with the Eagles. So that's in large part why Vince hasn't been the most productive with his solo output. But does that mean he's abandoning his own ambitions as a solo artist? Fortunately, no.
Oh, yeah!
While Vince says he would love to play with the Eagles until the end of time, he also feels a responsibility to his fans to continue sharing his art. And country fans recently got some wonderful news. Starting this last summer, Vince has finally begun performing solo shows again. Yes sirree, he's got a new album on the way. A second collaborative album with steel guitar player Paul Franklin. And of course, we know where Vince will be come Christmas time in Nashville, and I really can't think of anything better than that. Vince Gill has never been the flashiest country singer, and I think that's why his name doesn't always come up first in discussions of the legends. But that's where his name belongs. But that's never been his nature, and that's part of what makes his music so good. It carries a benevolent, healing energy with it. And I think I know the reason why. While country singers love to make a big fuss about their country and their religion, Vince has quietly lived up to those ideals. He's found a career he dedicates his life to, a woman he adores, a family he's raised. So forget about flashy cars, women, and big tractors. I'll take the Vince Gill lifestyle any day. But what do you think? What are your favorite tracks by Vince Gill? Or are you more of an Amy Grant fan? Have you ever seen one of their Christmas live shows? Was it just magical? Did it make the season? Get in the comments section and tell us all things Vince Gill. And before you go, please give this video a thumbs up if you don't mind. Subscribe to our channel and come back often so we can keep telling you